So yeah, with that, let's head over to the Lions. Yeah, they played a heck of a game against Matt Stafford in LA.
They did. Kind of inspiring, like we kind of thought maybe would happen. They were inspired. They played well. Again, I mean, they have no room for error. Zero room for error. They have to play legitimately perfect, and the other team probably has to play bad in order for them to beat a good team. You know.
Yeah,
that's probably what has to happen.
And that room for error ran out when Goff threw that pick with pressure. He could have taken that sack and just get the field goal. Yeah, take the sack. I know it was going to fourth down, but take the field goal. There's still 5 minutes left in the game. That essentially neutralized any chance that you had to get back in the game.
Over right there. Yep.
Defense did quite a good job. I mean, other than Stafford finding Cooper Kupp quite a bit. Robert Woods had only one really big play. Darrell Henderson was stuffed on the ground. I think that front actually ate up a lot of that offensive line. And I'm really impressed with the offensive line for the Lions. You being down Taylor Decker, being down Frank Ragnow, some of your two best offensive linemen.
Yep.
Essentially. And Evan Brown and Vaitai and Matt Nelson was the worst offensive lineman. Everybody else stepped up. And Evan Brown was actually the highest rated PFF center that last week. And that's the guy that had to take on Aaron Donald.
Yep.
With Vaitai. So Vaitai and Donald together, Vaitai and Brown together just took care of Donald. And that was a big concern going into that game, is it gave Goff a little bit more time to go deeper down the field every once in a while. Like you said, there's no margin for error with the Lions. And they also had to gain a couple of possessions. Just noticed at the beginning with what the heck are these Lions doing with the special teams craziness. They got the onside kick off the immediate touchdown, which gave them their first lead, offensive possession with a lead that entire year. And
that's so sad.
It's really sad. It really is, because that also takes the wind out of an offense because it doesn't mean they didn't have the lead. It just means the defense let it get back to a tie or lose it. And so with that, you give them a lot of being an 0-6 team going to LA to a team that's 6-1 and seems to take down every single team in its way, other than the Cardinals. Like that's a hard thing to do. And they won some possessions back just by some creative special teams work. Jack Fox throwing a dime that Jared Goff couldn't even make that pass. So let's just put Jack Fox in there the rest of the year.
I'm all for it,
Yeah, even Mark Sanchez said, he's like, there are starting NFL quarterbacks that can't make those out route throws. Mm-hmm. He threw a dime to Bobby Price. So, getting the two fake punts, and then with CJ Moore running around the edge, that was key. But Jack Fox looking like Johnny Hecker.
They had to pull out all the stops to stay in the game. So it's if you're looking at it from the other side, it's frustrating that they have to do that to even remotely be close in a game. Mm-hmm. But we knew that going in. They're at a talent deficit against a team like the Rams, and they're at a talent deficit with most of the league, if we're being honest. This week will be a little bit different, but they're not. Yeah, when you're that far removed, when the difference in talent is that big, and it's usually not, you don't see that in the NFL all that often. But the difference in ability is that big, and just in general. Yeah, there's no stars on the Lions at all. DeAndre Swift is the closest thing to a star on offense, and he had a good game, especially catching the ball. I'd say he had a really good game, actually. But, he's still not a guy that's like, man, that defense needs to be worried about him.
Yeah, and you would hope T.J. Hawkinson is another one of those stars. And right now, I'd say the only other stars are the injured offensive linemen. Right.
And you don't sit there and you don't prepare for an offensive lineman necessarily. You do, but you don't circle him on the game plan necessarily. It's an offensive lineman, he's going to block. You just know he's good at it, Swift doesn't change the way defenses have to play necessarily. Neither does Hawkinson. They're both very good at what they do. And maybe someday with a better team around both of them, they'll be even better. And I think they could be, but right now they're the only weapons, and it's not like there's a downfield threat there though. They're guys that are not taking the top off the defense, and unfortunately, that's what they're really missing. If they had a burner receiver that could really a deep threat receiver, even like Kenny Galladay, if that guy was still around, like that would make a difference. Because that could open up some other things. But they just don't have that right now, and that's kind of where the offense is. It's a bunch of dump offs and screens, and then eventually you're going to eat a sack. And it sucks. So
eventually Kenny Galladay would fake a shoulder injury though, and they put him on IR, and he'd never come back. In a season that feels like it's lost 0-7, we're seeing it with Taylor Decker.
Yeah,
Taylor Decker, who has a finger injury for 8 weeks, 9 weeks.
Yeah.
They doesn't want to come back.
I'm just going to tell him to mail it in. It is what it is. It's kind of sucks. But
and I wouldn't be surprised if they shut TJ Hawkinson down by week 12. Like, it's just one of those things where if they haven't gotten anything done, they're going to probably start shutting some dudes down.
Yep.
They're not going to mess around. They see a guy that's even a little bit hurt, they're putting him right on IR. It's like, okay.
Yeah. So start preparing for next year, dude.
Yeah. But they can start preparing for next week because this might be their best chance to win all year.
Yeah.
The Eagles have 1 win. So
yeah.
I picked the Eagles to be pretty bad this year. I think I had the Eagles as a top 5 pick in our NFL preview.
I think they're worse than I thought they might be, though.
Really? Yeah. I was impressed with Jalen. I didn't think Jalen Hurts would start. I thought Gardner Minshew might have started getting some snaps this year.
Yeah, the Eagles are 2-5. They have 2 wins.
Okay, 2. Okay.
Who did they beat? Let's see. First of all, can we just talk about how Nick Sirianni is using a Flowers analogy to talk about his team's growth? I mean, the Eagles have been close in a lot of these games. So if you look at it, though, not saying they're good, they're not. So the
line's been close in a lot of games. That doesn't mean they're good.
They smoked the Falcons week 1, which means nothing. They barely lost the 49ers. They got killed by the Cowboys. They only lost the Chiefs by 8. They beat the Panthers by 3. They only lost to the Buccaneers by 6, and then they lost to the Raiders by 11.
So that Bucs game actually seems kind of impressive. Weird. Other than the Bucs defense has been abysmal.
They have. The Bucs offense has been really good though.
Yeah, so. And it's the same with the Chiefs offense has now also been kind of stuttering a little bit, but the defense for the Chiefs is also bad. So it's a different NFL year where you look at this. If you looked at it out of context from how they were supposed to be at the beginning of the year, expect the Bucs defense to be more dominant. You still expected the offense to be fired, but then you expected the Chiefs to have a serviceable defense, but be really explosive on offense. And it just seems like a lot of teams are sputtering. I think the Eagles are one of those teams that have taken advantage of some of those matchups and issues that these other teams are experiencing in the moment.
Yeah. It's a problem, though, the Eagles have. I mean, Jalen Hurts has actually been relatively impressive for what I thought he might be, but he's also their leading rusher, which isn't necessarily what you want as an NFL team. He's got 5 touchdowns on the ground and 10 through the air, so that's pretty good. But and he's ran for almost 400 yards already, so he's been a weapon. But yeah, I mean, I think this is their line's best. It might be their best chance at a win. I agree with that.
The defense is just they've got their concerns. I mean, Jalen Hurts obviously better than what anyone really probably expected this year. But Miles Sanders I think Miles Sanders may not even be eligible to play this week. So a lot of people are loading up on Kenneth Gainwell on their fantasy rosters.
Yeah.
So Gainwell, Boston Scott, but then it's really we talked about it in the beginning of the year when you were doing our rankings for the wide receivers. We were kind of going back and forth, and these are the 2 worst teams for wide receivers.
Yep. Devontae Smith's been pretty decent,
inconsistent, but definitely has some flashes.
Yep.
Jalen Rager made a great catch last week. Then other than that, you get Greg Ward, the former Houston quarterback, J.J. Arcega-Whiteside, and Quez Watkins, who can sometimes be their deep threat. Dallas Goedert now is their sole tight end with like Richard Rodgers. Since Zach Ertz went over to the Cardinals. The offensive line isn't what it used to be. It's pretty much just Lane Johnson and a former Australian rugby guy, Jordan Mailata. So I'm not impressed. Jason Kelsey is now with Ragnow out, probably one of the best centers in football. So we'll see how this defensive front does. because I think that's probably the strength, just like the Lions. They have similar strengths. Brandon Graham is out for the year. I know Javon Hargrave has been kind of banged up a little bit, so it's Fletcher Cox and Derek Barnett and Ryan Kerrigan is the pass rush.
Yeah.
Linebackers are bad, other than Eric Wilson, Jernard Avery, Alex Singleton, TJ Edwards. We got to play big play Slay again. So that's something to watch out for. I know but to the other side, it's pretty much Zach McPherson and like Avante Maddox, and that's not super impressive.
No, but the Lions have nothing that's really going to challenge that. For the most part. So I don't know. I think if the Lions don't win this game, unfortunately, we may be looking at one of those where it's like this might actually be really interesting at the end here. We might be pushing like a 0-17 team. Yeah, that's unfortunately.
Yeah, but it could also be a turning point if this team does get that monkey off their back and get a dub. That also means that they maybe play with that. They got that fire now. They're like, okay, we can't set that horrible record anymore. We can't break this team's horrible record. And maybe they win a game later in this year that's like totally unexpected. And then maybe they win their other games that they might have a chance against, like the Steelers. I don't know. They've got games down.
It's just one of those things where it's like, man, they kind of have to win this one, though. That's kind of how I'm feeling. Like, not that like it means anything. It means literally nothing for both teams if we're in the grand scheme of things. But it's one of those things where I look at it and it's like, if you're gonna win a game, it's got to be now. Because if they don't, I don't see a lot of wins anyway. And this was one where I'm like, yeah, this is one where it's like, yeah, this is a win. That's what I thought. I'm
actually predicting a win for this game. And it's my first one other than the Bears home game that they played. I was like, hey, they might be able to win this game. So otherwise I picked against them. And obviously in some of those games that I picked against them, they've still played competitive. But you never know. I think my thoughts on this right now is I'll say the Lions 27. And I'll probably give the Eagles, I think it could be 21, like 20, 27-20.
That's kind of where I was thinking. If the Lions score 27, I think they got a real good chance to win. The Eagles' defense is terrible, like atrociously bad. Nick Sirianni is also like some weird poet or something. He's a weird dude.
That's pretty much like mixing Rich Rod with You Raise Me Up with like a couple of flowers.
Yeah, there's some weirdness going on there, and I think he's just terrible. From moment one, obviously, we saw his press conference, the opening press conference.
A disaster.
Quite possibly the worst introductory press conference of all time. The Lions do need to score like in the mid-20s, though, I think. If they do that, I think they got a real good shot. I'm actually going to say 24-20 Lions win.
Okay. Yeah, that seems just as likely. I think the defense has been surprisingly been the strength, and that kind of makes me which is a crazier surprise is that a team that is right now 0-7 could lose 3 people to a head coaching job, which means, hey, we get 3 free draft picks.
Yep.
Because Anthony Lynn and Aaron Glenn and Deuce Staley.
Yep.
Like those, and maybe Antoine Randall L down the road. We'll see. Yep. But all those guys, it's like Aaron Glenn, for what he's had to work with on defense and the fight that defense has put up against some pretty explosive offenses. That's something to behold. And then obviously the strength of the Lions right now has been the 1-2 punch that Deuce Staley has with DeAndre Swift and Jamal Williams. So still the only team in the NFL that's only trotted out 2 running backs behind the quarterback.
Nice.
And so that's kind of neat. And then obviously Anthony Lynn, he's been in rumors all year about LSU or USC or Michigan State.
Yep.
Yeah, it could be interesting what happens with that. So